Hi, welcome to this edition of Inside the Human School, where we each share some background on how the Human School came about, as well as something that resonated with us regarding the compass points and mind shifts. We also hope to share a little bit about how we work behind the scenes as learners too. I'm Rachel.
I'm Randy.
I'm Chad.
As we engage in conversation each week, we want to share a bit about our growth and processes at the Human School first. So this week's Inside the Human School question is, why is learning in public important to you?
I think learning in public is important, and it is a core value that we have here, because learning is messy, and learning in public creates a story, and stories inspire people. And we want to inspire people to jump in the deep end of the pool, feel comfortable getting messy, making mistakes, and nothing is perfect the first time. You know, working with graduate students at a couple different institutions, from master's programs and theses to doctoral programs and dissertations, I find that is one of the biggest challenges that students need to overcome, and that is in the creative process, being ashamed to put something out there that doesn't look perfect. It doesn't look perfect. The first of anything is not very good. And we're modeling that here at the Human School. So I think learning in public is really just a good opportunity to sort of strip that old mindset of being perfect.
I know that, I get frustrated because I'm really interested in that iceberg analogy of, what happens under the surface. To me, the process is so more exciting for me than the product. And I find that there's a lot of work out there that is product oriented and it looks bright and shiny, and then there's not a whole lot of substance underneath the surface. And so I think that when we were designing this work, we talked about wanting people to see underneath the hood, behind the curtain, whatever analogy or metaphor you want to use, but that, we don't have it all figured out. And I'll also say that as adults, I believe so strongly in modeling that I say it all the time. We expect more of our kids than we expect of ourselves. And I think that it's awfully hypocritical for us in classroom to tell kids to try and, it takes a couple attempts and you iterate and you grow and you change. And as adults, we're not willing to live that and model it. And there are probably a lot of reasonable reasons, fear, ego, whatever those things are, but
Grades.
There you go.
I think that's a huge friction that not only our kids have to deal with, but I think because our teachers live in that world, when they put something out that's not public or that could be criticized or could be given some sort of feedback, that's a big friction. I might be graded and I might not get an A.
Yeah, that's true. So, for me, learning in public is really just about trying to model, to your point, Randy, that it doesn't have to be perfect. And learning is messy. And we need models of what that messy middle looks like.
Totally agree.
Yeah, I'll echo the same thing, because I also think it even goes beyond learning. I think anytime that we're willing to be the authentic version of ourselves, we can connect to that. That it's when we look at someone that seems like they have it all figured out. They have everything put together. They look great. They sound great. They have this wonderful job. They seem like the perfect parent, all of that. And we have that tape that tells us we're not good enough because it doesn't look like that. And it's the moments where you see that person fall apart or break down or trip or whatever, you're like, oh, you're just like me. And I remember in classrooms too, I think one of the things that helped a lot as a high school teacher is I did not try to be perfect, because I'm not, but also it's just not really, I'm lucky in that I don't feel bad about myself when I make a mistake in that way. If I spell something wrong or I don't know, make a fool out of myself in front of kids, it never bothered me. And I didn't have a problem laughing at myself, or I didn't have a problem admitting that I didn't know something. And one of the comments that I frequently got from students was that I seemed like a real person, that I was human, and I let them feel like it was okay to be who they were. And that always meant a lot to me, because I think that that's the learning in public part. It's being whoever you are and telling the whole story. I remember, this is a deeper, sort of sadder version of this, but I remember years ago, we lost a student to a really tragic situation. Her whole family passed. And I remember it was I think my second year, maybe my first year in the district. And I excused myself from the class. She was in my class. She was my student. And sitting and looking at her empty desk just kind of wrecked me. And I stood in the hallway and just like sobbed for a couple of minutes. I needed some time to collect myself. And my supervisor at the time, I don't remember if she saw me or if she found me, if we talked later, but she said, it's okay to do that in front of kids. It's okay for them to see you be in pain or have a hard time, because that lets them know what that looks like too, because those are the parts that are the hardest things, that the aftermath, or like everything is fine or everything worked out, looks really great, but it's the messy part, it's the middle that makes it great, and it makes it a place of connection. And so I think demonstrating the flaws or the mess or the multiple paths or the different contexts is what allows people to connect and believe you as authentic, or your process is authentic, and create space for them to feel safe when they're messy too, which is, I think, vital.
So I'll start real quickly and just kind of sharing my curiosity. And I'm going to tell a story from the week. So I had a chance to visit some classrooms, and some of the classrooms in the organization that I serve in, serve kids who have multiple disabilities or significant disabilities, physical, challenges. And I got to see a teacher and a student who were just so excited by this new adaptive technology and how it allowed the student to communicate in ways that up until this point they hadn't been able to do. And what it made me reflect on and think about is how we treat in our system kids who have disabilities as the exception as opposed to the norm. So this idea that there's an individual pathway for each kid, that there's an opportunity for each kid, we see that they are the ones that we think about last, as opposed to seeing each student through an asset-based lens. And so that reflection I had on that experience was just this reminder that the system, we put all these barriers and barricades in front of these kids and these teachers, and they still succeed, and they still are excited by the learning that happens despite those barriers. And imagine that we didn't have those barriers in place, and all kids. And so when we talk about a liberatory experience, like that was a kid who was liberated by technology to express herself and show that she could learn in ways that weren't available to her prior.
So the connection that I was making was to my earlier comment about grades, Rachel's comment about identity, and a book that I've been reading, which is called Complex Adaptive Leadership. Okay, so how do those three things sort of all come into play? The idea of identity and grades, I think, is an interesting connection. And when our students feel compelled to not be themselves because of a grade, it really makes you understand just how damaging grades are, because we're basically saying don't be yourself, don't even figure out who you are. You just need to be compliant to whatever the expectations are of the grade. And how does this idea of identity connect to this complex adaptive leadership book that I'm reading? The theory here is that very much related to our second mind shift, which is that, you're a leader regardless of what your formal title is. And their argument is that our organizations are structurally put together in a way that doesn't work. They make the analogy to an oligarchy, where there's somebody at the top of the organization who is telling the other people. There's like this one unidirectional way of manipulating the people that are in the middle or the bottom of the organization. And instead of that, they want a polyarchy, I guess that's how you say it, but that the role of the leader, we will always have those hierarchies that are sort of the organizational chart, but that the role of the leader is to allow those at other levels to contribute and have the ideas of vision and agency, instead of it being one way and crushing somebody's identity, to actually have them reveal their identity, their ideas, and develop that and to honor that. And how does the person who's at the top with the power, so to speak, create the conditions for that? So basically, I'm connecting the identity piece to that. If I'm the person at the top of the organization, or you're the person at the top of the organization, your role is really to allow people to share their identity, their true selves, and not to run your organization in that sort of oligarchy framework where you're basically suppressing people's identities and just asking them to comply. So I'm looking forward to getting deeper into that book and that idea of helping all people to be leaders within the organization.
And that actually dovetails really nicely with my curiosity this week. So I'm reading our colleague CJ Cassiata's book, Get Weird. And the part that I'm actually listening to it. And the part that I was listening to that really stuck with me was the way that he talked about love. And that he says that love is about letting go of your insecurities and feeling like whatever version of your weird is, that you belong in that way. And I was thinking about it in terms of our work. I was thinking about it in terms of teaching and students, and even as school districts, what it looks like to make a space where people feel like they can be authentic versions of themselves to the best of their ability, without feeling like they're too weird, or they're not good enough, or that they are too different from everybody else. And that whatever that version of love is, that allows us to let go of our insecurities. So I'm thinking about that in terms of work and schools, and how we can create those spaces in our classrooms and with our teachers and with our students as well. So we wanted to thank you for learning alongside us in this week's edition of Inside the Human School, where our goal is to learn in public and share a little bit about how we're learning this week and intend to learn more about in the future. Visit thehuman.school and its Learning in Public hub for additional resources, and join the conversation in our Facebook community committed to placing humanity at the center of all design. Thanks, guys.
All right. See you later. Bye-bye.